fall, I updated my sister's front porch area for the fall season, and you guys absolutely loved it. So I thought this year I'm going to do my front porch, take you guys through all of my tips and hacks and how to get a high-end look for fall on your front porch, but in a really budget-friendly way. Without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. One of the most impactful but inexpensive changes you can make to your front porch, to the exterior of your house, is changing the color of your front door. So this is how the door is looking lately. Don't mind this spot here. For some reason, my kids thought a glue stick was a good idea right here. It is supposed to be black, but it doesn't really come across black. It's almost like a very dark gray. And I was realizing that a lot of the inspirations that I had for front door decor, especially for fall, had these really beautiful wood doors. And some of you might remember when I did this technique on my stair rail inside, and it was super cost effective to do it this way. Started off with, of course, just the prep work, which is cleaning the door off from any dust and debris, so that way I can get a really nice, smooth finish when I go to paint. Prep is always the thing that's going to take the longest, but the better you prep, the faster the rest of the steps go. So I just taped everything down before applying our first layer of paint onto the door. For the color, this will look a little bit different for everybody, but I chose the color based off of the siding of my house. So my siding definitely has a yellow undertone. So when I went to look at all of the taupe kind of options, I picked one that also had a yellow undertone, just so everything is nice and cohesive and consistent throughout. Applied it in sections, first using a brush and then going over with a foam roller designed for cabinets indoors. Let that dry fully, and then it was time to go in with antiquing wax. You could also use gel stain here if that's your preference. I just really like the color that I get from the antiquing wax. Wiped off any excess, and I just did the panels first, and then once those were dry, I went on to the rest of the door. Making long straight strokes is the key here, so that way you get a nice seamless look at the end. Once everything was dry, I then just went over it with a matte sealer, and now it was time to start decorating. Starting off with a few wreath ideas. So when it comes to how much you're willing to spend, oftentimes you don't have to spend anything. You can make a wreath using things that you have in your craft stash and your floral stash. I sort my florals by holiday and season, so whenever I'm going in to make a wreath, of course I like to look at inspiration, but also kind of a no-fail approach is just taking some florals that you have that are similar in color and just combining them all together in one wreath. And I think it is a really easy way and a free way to just use up what you have, and you can get a really beautiful end result. But if you're not somebody who has a ton of leftover florals from years prior, or maybe you've had to downsize and get rid of things, there's just also free things outside. And fall in particular is a really great season for this because there's acorns and pine cones, branches, all of that falls in line really, really well with fall, as well as if you have hydrangeas, maybe your neighbor, your friend, your mom also has florals that you can dry and make into a wreath for completely free. But if you have a little bit of money in the budget for a wreath, I recommend checking your thrift store. I have found brand new wreaths in boxes with tags on for essentially like $1 to $2 if I'm shopping at the Goodwill outlet. And often they're from some of our favorite retail stores like Kirkland's or Home Goods, TJ Maxx. But instead of spending $20, $30, $40 on a wreath, you can get out of there spending less than a few dollars on something that you can really enjoy. But if you're not one for the thrift store or DIYing, there is, of course, our big box stores, which are the wreaths that most people buy. The ones at home, at Target, Home Depot, Lowe's. All of those stores have a lot of nice options that are pretty affordable, especially when you compare them to designer wreaths. Okay, so with the door pretty much done now, it's time to put up a wreath. So I found this one at Target. This is the wreath through her Studio McGee line. And then this is the one from McGee & Co. I only ordered this because I have had a gift card since Christmas that I have not yet used. I really did love this wreath, like the way she put it up on the website. I thought it looked beautiful. Unfortunately, I am going to return this one just because I don't feel like it's worth the price, and I feel like I'll find something else from McGee & Co. that I can use my gift card on. But I'm glad I saw it in person because now I can kind of see some of the details that she added to this wreath that is not in the wreath from Target. So I'm just going to grab a few stems that kind of look like this for my stash, as well as these, and just add it to the Target wreath, as well as like adding a ribbon that I thrifted. So taking our $35 Target wreath and combining it with some thrifted florals that I've just collected throughout the years. I'm very happy though that I did see it in person. I've never spent anything even remotely close to that on a wreath. And to be honest, I don't think I ever will again, because I just don't think it's worth the price when you can create something just as beautiful, so much more affordably, and completely custom to you. By doing the faux wood grain technique on the front door and buying an affordable wreath with some thrifted adjustments, I am well under $100 for this transformation, and I think it makes a huge impact on a budget. With the front door and the wreath complete, now it's just time to add in all of the other pieces. So I love the planters from Pottery Barn, but I don't think it would go over well with my husband if I spent $1,000 on 4 planters. So he sent me this picture when he was at Kohl's, and I told him I loved them, but how much are they? And he said, what if I told you you could get 4 of these for under $100? And I said yes and yes. These planters look almost identical to the ones from Pottery Barn, but are literally 10% of the price. So for the bigger of the 2 planters, I wanted to kind of tie in the colors that we used in the wreath, but also add a little bit of height as well. So I felt that these were a nice option, and they were just $22 a piece. If ever you're finding that the plant that you bought is just kind of sinking too low into your pot, I recommend just going in your recycle bin, find something that's about the same size as the base of your plant, and then fill it with something heavy, so that way it just gives your plant a little boost. For one of the smaller pots, I just grabbed some white mums just to kind of keep it nice and neutral. And then I wanted to add kind of another wood element to tie back into the door. So I found these birch logs for $3 and decided to just kind of fill that other planter with these instead. And you can essentially do this for free. I see signs all the time when I'm driving for free wood. You could just cut it down and place it in a planter, and gives a kind of cozy rustic feel. Moving along now to pumpkins. So where I personally like to buy my pumpkins is a store called Pizzutis. I like to shop locally when I can, because I usually find that they give you the best prices and they have the best options as well. When I shop at big box places, I find that they're usually double the price and not nearly as great as when you shop local. So this is basically how it will look until October 1st, which is when I will add in my kind of Halloween touches. In a previous video, I shared with you guys how much I loved these handmade terracotta jack-o'-lantern pumpkins, and then I found a huge collection of these at my Goodwill outlet for less than $1 a piece, and I just basically removed the lighting components that were attached to these pumpkins because they were giving off kind of like a blue light. Just did so using a little screwdriver, removed all of those pieces so I can add my own lights later on. Grabbed a sample paint from Behr, mixed it with some grout that I had left over, and got this kind of really nice gritty terracotta-like texture. Because I knew these would be going outside for Halloween, I then went over that with a whitewash effect using some storm paint that I watered down and then just kind of removed the excess. I then added battery operated fairy lights in a nice warm white. Had I bought these from Pottery Barn, this would be almost $700, but because I thrifted and DIY'd them, it cost me less than 30 bucks. So I got a few questions about how I would weigh these down or how would I keep these in place outside. For this style of a pumpkin, I like to use something called museum putty. But for these kind of foam pumpkins that are just super lightweight, it takes almost nothing for them to get knocked over. I recommend grabbing some funnels from the Dollar Tree as well as some duct tape, hollowing out a small hole in the bottom for a funnel to be placed inside. Now you can use anything. I've used concrete, I've used sand in the past. It ends up usually being about kind of the same in price, honestly. The thing that I like about the concrete better is that it kind of creates its own plug at the base there. So after the cement or concrete dries, it just kind of dries solid and flush with the bottom of the pumpkin. When you do the sand, you have to kind of figure out a way to get the sand to stay inside your pumpkin. So personal preference, a really great and inexpensive way to weigh down, you know, cheap pumpkins that are made of foam, but make sure that they stay as you want them to. Another kind of inexpensive addition to make to your front door is to add a doormat. And this really doesn't have to be expensive. I like to look at places like Marshall's and HomeGoods, but this one I happened to find at Dollar General for just $7 because it was half off. Because in about a week, I will be adding a Halloween doormat on top of this. It's a great kind of layering piece. Some of you may have already seen the light up doormat that I made a few weeks back. And that was just taking a $5 dollar spot doormat and then just kind of poking holes in from the back, filling those holes in with some fairy lights that again I had left over from other projects, and then just duct taping them in place. I like these lights a lot because they are battery operated and come with a remote, so it just adds to the convenience of everything. At night I can turn these on or even set them on a timer. Our neighborhood does Halloween in a really fun and big way, so adding all of these little inexpensive touches I feel like just really make it fun for me and the kids to enjoy. The last thing that I just really couldn't move past was my doorbell. It just looked so old and dingy, especially when I updated everything else. So I looked online, I couldn't find anything that I really loved, so I just grabbed some textured black spray paint, gave a few coats, and then just, of course, sealed it, screwed it back into place. Now it's not the perfect situation, but it's definitely an improvement from what it used to be. So this is how my front porch area was looking before and now after all of our hacks and tips and tricks to get a really beautiful end result that doesn't have to break the bank. If you liked this video, would you do me a huge favor and give it a big thumbs up and let me know down in the comments which find or hack or project was your favorite, and I will see you guys next Sunday. Bye for now.